Welcome to this week's episode of Trista's Plate Story Podcast. I'm Trista Polo from iwokeupawesome.com, and I am your host. Each week we learn the story behind that vanity plate. You know, the one you saw driving down the road? What did it say? What did it mean? Why did they choose it? Welcome to Trista's Plate Story Podcast. I'm super excited for today's guest. The plate is HEADFILM. The plate owner is Hamza Zaman from the Catskills, originally from the New York City area and relocated up during COVID. Welcome. Thanks for being with me today.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited. So tell me first about your plate. Why did you choose HEADFILM?
Well, my production company and film company is called Headless Films. And apparently someone has Headless out there for probably a macabre purpose. I'm not going to judge. And I thought that was the, closest portmanteau for Headless Films. And it just worked. I've had some people tease me about it with certain more salacious concepts that I was unaware of. But, I make, standard, straightforward films without too much controversy, I think.
Okay, that's good.
That's what it came about.
Well, the Headless Horseman is originally based out of the Westchester area. So it could be that that's why it's taken. Yeah. So you make films, you have a production company. How long have you done that?
I guess my first film was over a decade ago. I mean, I've been writing for, since I was a teenager, but in earnest, we started making our own films probably in 2015-ish. So it's been about, 6, 7 years, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious how you go from working on stuff to making it official. What was the auspice for that pivot that had you say, I'm doing this?
Well, like I said, I've been, writing stories since I was a teenager, always wanted to do it. Never really got to sort of convert that. I had a couple of abortive attempts and, it's just hard without the resource. So I went to college, went to work, kind of did my whole, traditional life journey. And then I met my current wife and producing partner, and she was much more open to the kind of the sacrifices and rigors that are needed to be able to take, a good chunk of your time and then devote it to not just writing the story, that you can do pretty much alone, but then developing the production team around it, shooting it itself, and then doing all the post production, which is, editing, VFX, sound, and then bringing it to market actually.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Traditional film, you kind of have the story, you cast it, you build a team together, you plan the production, you shoot it, which is usually a very compressed time frame. And then in post, you take all the time you need to, edit it, titling, sound, music, VFX, all that stuff. And that depending on how much budget you have, how fast your, team works and what the requirements are, can take a lot longer than definitely from production. Production's always the shortest time, and then probably from pre-production as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I understand that there are kind of these days two banks for film. You've got the superhero blockbuster $200 million film, and then the independent film. And it's hard to find stuff in the middle. So you work in more of the independent side, but I'd love to hear your take on that.
I think it's two things, right? One, putting together the amount, the budgets and the requirements for VFX and kind of the brands and all that come along with it for those bigger movies have just become a lot more expensive. Talent, name talent, they can cost millions of dollars for just one cast member. Union labor, all these guys are highly skilled artisans, so they get paid, like thousands of dollars a day for production, especially and post. So the numbers there just add up because there's so many people needed to make, like Iron Man or any of these Superman, any of these big superhero movies. So I can see where those budgets explode. I I have to say for myself, I'm a little suspicious about it, but that's probably just because I'm in the indie world. So, I'm like, sometimes I see a movie, I'm like, Where does $200 million go?" Like, I just don't see it. For a movie I absolutely love and adore, I just don't understand where $200 million go. But that's maybe because I'm just the gnat on the tail of the gigantic elephant that is, these big studios, you know what I mean? Just surviving off of the crumbs, if you will, of the world. And dealing with very, very, very lean budgets
Yeah.
because the other side of the story is film production has also become quite democratized, right? It used to be 20 years ago, making a high quality image was kind of the rarefied, bailiwick of a very select group of people that had access to film, that had access to these 35 millimeter lenses, Panavision, all these like very expensive pieces of equipment. Over the last couple of decades, we've seen with the advent of especially like these kind of really pro end digital cameras like the Red, and Alexa has a couple of good models out. We've seen people, if not able to purchase these, at least able to rent them, at least able to be able to work with that digital workflow, right? You don't have only a few film processing companies. You can get your digital image out at 4K, 6K, even 8K cameras now, and sort of have a little bit of access into how to process those, how to edit them, how to, deal with them yourself. And I think that's made two things happen. One, it's made a whole bunch of movies possible. A whole bunch of creators are able to do it. The demands for streaming, that all these platforms are out there. YouTube, even like even this story, how much has that been made popular by podcasts? And it's the possibilities are almost endless. It's how much work and effort you can put into it, how the audience you can find, and that's just because of the tools have allowed almost everybody to create at the base level of high quality image, a high quality audio, if you right, a recording like this. So there's a lot out there, but how do you actually separate that? So to me, it kind of comes down to like the old original tenets. Like it has to be a good story. It has to be, you have to be able to be a good storyteller. You have to be able to, you know, give people something they haven't seen before because, people think that there's nothing new under the sun, that everything's already been done. And in a way that's true, but there's always a way to imagine it. There's always a new angle on it. There's always a new idea that you get. Not everything will ever be done because just the combinations are infinite, right? So I think that combination has kind of separated the middle end because, it's you have the indie world where I am, which is super high risk. You kind of have like I would even call it like a Wild West in a way, you just have a bunch of people that can really just put their, like it's possible for a guy to like kind of put a mortgage on his house or, a second mortgage, get a few hundred grand together and make a movie, right? Now, does that mean he should put his future at risk and do it? I don't know. I can't speak for other people. Like for me, I know it's a passion of mine. I don't think my life would be fulfilled if I didn't try to go for it. And I was blessed to meet the partner who make it happen. She supported the whole way around. And I told her last night or 2 nights ago at a private screening, I owe my career to her because without her, I would not have had the support to be able to have a family, to be able to have a life and still be able to pursue these dreams.
That's beautiful. I love that. And you're talking about a private screening. You have a movie that has just come out. So let's talk. We have to talk about that. So it's The Institute. It's a medical thriller. I want to know everything.
Right. Well,
First, give us a synopsis. Yeah, give us a synopsis first.
a young couple has difficulty having children. And so they get accepted to an exclusive remote facility where a charismatic doctor says he will help them fulfill their dreams.
And so you said that these days a story really has to have uniqueness, originality. What would you say you're bringing in that regard to this story? You wrote it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you
Yep.
wrote it, and did you direct it as well?
I did.
And you produced it?
Not entirely.
Not entirely.
Actually,
Okay.
my wife was the lead producer, Chelsea Roth,
Mhm.
and we have a whole production team,
Awesome.
other producers, a whole team of executive producers, and it's a feature, so it
Yeah.
takes a village. I mean, this was 50 plus people working on this.
Awesome. So what is unique and original about this take on a couple trying to have a family?
Well, I think it's going to be a little different than other maybe films that you've seen that deal with this topic. I've had to be sensitive because it is a very delicate topic. I've had friends, family members that have dealt with this. The idea came from my own, initial attempts to start a family, the insecurities that come with it, and how in the medical field, you're not really, you don't really have a lot of power. And this, my family has many physicians in it. My sister, my father, they're both physicians. And, I understand their side of it, but I also I've been through this journey. I've seen what happens in the hospital. Women kind of railroaded into things like a C-section, which is more popular and more prevalent than natural births now, which is mind-boggling to me, but a whole nother, that's a whole nother topic.
That's a different podcast.
It's a different podcast. Yeah. These things all kind of inspired me to talk about this, and it's sort of a taboo subject. So I think it's important to delve with things that are important and maybe we don't discuss quite so much. But, at the same time, I, as a man, it's not really my job. I'm an advocate, but I'm not really here I can't really speak for the specific detailed, journey. So I just want it to be sensitive to that. But at the same time, it's a film, I want this to be something watchable. So I kind of have always been a person that lets my imagination run wild. This is why I love to do this. I come up with a story, you know what I mean? It seems interesting to me. And I want to tell that story to others and just give them, an hour and a half of escapism. And hopefully you're surprised by some of the twists and turns, some of the places that I take this story. And I think that's what makes it unique is that I kind of mix and match certain expectations that you have. And then hopefully at the end of the story, you've seen something, a melange that you may have never seen before.
Well, it sounds very intriguing. Can you tell me anything about the actors that are starring in it, the cast?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. It's an indie. And our lead actress, Victoria Brandart, she was somebody that I had worked with before. We were familiar with each other and I kind of helped her. We worked with each other to bring the production, to light. And so she had been there since basically day one, not day two at least. And so it was a natural choice. She read for the part and she really had the passion for it and still is helping, promote. She was a great, some of the reviews said she was a great choice. She did a wonderful job. She was familiar with my initial actor. He dropped out. Unfortunately, he was also kind of a family friend. He's a big star on Broadway, but he had some scheduling difficulties. And then with COVID and our budget requirements and everything getting sort of condensed, she brought a new actor, Ignacio Matina. And the fact that they were familiar with each other when they read, it really helped work things out because this is a story about a husband and wife. So the intimacy there, the background, the heritage of their relationship transformed, informed that
I love that.
formed the film. So it worked out
And
well. They did a good job and they had that connection, that chemistry that you can kind of see on screen.
and it sounds like in an indie film environment, you really went into your own network to cast the film. Is that typical? Did you also hold auditions? Like
Oh
what's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, our main actor, the doctor himself, there's a couple of doctors, but the main doctor, Mark Levine, he was somebody who I had worked with as well. I'd cast him in a play I had directed. I'm also a playwright and director in that world. And he played a very different character, but I always saw him as the look and, be able to, at least look the part. So then we had him read for the audition for actually to be able to pull off some of the range that the doctor needed. And I think he did it. He was definitely came across the way he needed to come across for the story. The ensemble, there's other couples at the Institute, that we meet. Some of them I went to my network, people I had cast before, but we had a few kind of public castings. It was different given COVID that there's Zoom castings, but I think it worked out okay.
Yeah, that must have been quite a process. Did you use any of the local casting agencies? We actually have a bunch of local casting agencies right here in the Hudson Valley. Is this where you filmed it?
I filmed it. The majority of it, the vast majority was in the Hudson Valley, the Cats.
Yeah.
Hudson Valley Film Commission was instrumental in getting
Awesome.
us resources for like local ADs and transportation and even some locations and just talent, sound. There's a whole bunch of people that need to be there. the day of and a little bit before to get this thing to work. Casting, I did not really put out my net here in the Hudson Valley. Maybe looking back, I should have, but just, I kind of had that history with New York and casting in the city and knowing the talent down there. And, just the pool is so huge. And because we didn't have a whole lot of like extras we needed or just kind of, it was all very specific, very tight, cast. So I went mostly with the New York area, although Victoria Brand artist came in from LA.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Now we have in this area, it's being torn down because it's being built into like a shopping center and condos and stuff, but it's an old mental institution. It's supposed to be haunted, very, weird energy over there. Did you look into places like that here in the Hudson Valley since it's a medical thriller, or how did you
Right.
choose your locations?
Yeah, no, I think I'm familiar with the one you're talking about. There's one that's
Yeah.
near Middletown, New York, and then there's a few abandoned facilities I've seen as well. I had my location people look into them. I think they're good locations, but they weren't available as like filmed locations. But we were able to get tons of great places in the Hudson Valley. We found an old summer camp that, unfortunately they weren't doing anything because of COVID. So we were able to have a little bubble and have our, cast and crew all live together for, the few weeks. It was really very collegiate, we had a game room, people were playing pool, having campfires, it was pretty cool. I mean, we're working hard.
That's awesome. Like drama camp for a movie.
Exactly, exactly. I would love it to do that again,
That's
I
amazing.
100%.
Well, being in the Hudson Valley, having actor friends in the Hudson Valley, I'll tell you there are some amazing talent and some wonderful casting people here in the area. And there's a lot more stuff being filmed here. I love that you're doing stuff up here and that you've relocated up here. What else can you tell us
I
about
mean,
the film?
it's out now. It's
Yeah, how do we see it?
on yeah, Amazon, Apple TV, Google Play, all the streaming sites will have it, YouTube, I'm sure. And you can also see it on Spectrum, your local cable providers, your local satellite providers. It'll be available on their networks to, it's the Institute by Hamza Zaman, just check it out. We also would appreciate if you guys could give us some good reviews, on Rotten Tomatoes and the like. And it's a small film, so small films need big support. So anything you can do to help spread the word or help us with our social media, you can check out all those links on institutemovie.com. And, it should route you to more and more areas where you can see it. We can, sign up for news on the social side.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, this is all very fascinating.
I'm just a small creator, trying to live my dream by,
Yeah, I love that. And I really admire and honor you for doing that. Because you did take a risk, like, you went out on the skinny branches, and you mentioned that it was really because your wife supported that dream. She said, "Go for it, babe." I don't know if she calls you babe, right? That's just what's happening in my head. "Go for it, babe." S So let's talk about her a little bit. Her name is Chelsea, and she's a producer, and she's in the film world as well. What do you love best about her?
oh my God. I mean, I don't want to,
Top
go
3.
down. I, there's really nothing bad I could say about her. She's a
Yeah.
wonderful person. We joke about like, we have our own, obviously relationship has their own internal language, but I joke about how I've been searching for her for many lifetimes. And, it's so great that
Aw,
we finally got to meet and fulfill that, long journey. She's got a
love
great
that.
heart, like a wonderful heart, super, super soft, the highest levels of integrity, which made her kind of an ill fit for when we started getting her into this film production world, but somehow we were able to muddle her along, swimming with people and their egos and their lies. But, it's been a journey that's been able to be more rewarding because we're together, right? We can kind of share these things. She actually comes more from the Broadway world. She went to college for design and then she worked on a whole host of Broadway shows, backstage designing, wigs and makeup and all that. And, she did costume design. She's an award-winning costume designer. She won
Oh, cool.
Pride, yeah, and that's what she really wants to do. She really loved to do costume design, and unfortunately, because of our budget and our requirements, she got pushed more into the production role, but she's been doing great with it, and, because of her experience with we kind of did this together. With the first play I wrote, we were like, okay, she's the one that told me to submit it. We won that, little contest. And from there, it's just been like, decisions together. Which one of our stories does she like? Do we like? And we kind of partner up, get the team together, put it on. And it's been very natural. It's always been like a part of our relationship, frankly. I don't know if it will ever change because we do have that love for art. We do have that love for story. So even though now we have kids and we're sort of, more in a adulting mode, I don't think it really was too big of a tangent, right? So we met at a writer's group, actually. We were both I was working on a screenplay. She was working on a play. So we always had that connection on our art, on what we love about it. I mean, our tastes are different. She'll probably say she has taste, whereas I'm more open to, pretty much anything within the genre world, I'll watch. But there's really I could go on. There's really nothing about her that I would change. She's a wonderful human being that's honestly sacrificed so much for us, for our family, to be able to let us make these films, to be able to like raise a family. I mean,
Yeah.
things she does are an order of magnitude above what I contribute to our lifestyle.
Ah, that's amazing. I love hearing you talk about her. You're just so complimentary, so much acknowledgement and love in your words and behind them. Beautiful. Yeah. And you met at a writer's group?
Huh? Yeah,
Yeah.
this was in Manhattan. I guess sort of semi. It's random, but it was. I don't know. I don't want to say anything ill about writers either, since I am one. But I was at a writer.
I was going to say, aren't you a writer?
I'm a writer. I'm a writer. I'm guilty as charged. So, but the groups are not usually filled with how shall I say this, beautiful, attractive, young women coming in to work on their stories. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but in my case, I was just working on my screenplay, kind of like minding my own business. And then she kind of came in and sat down.
It's better that way, right? Because then you don't get distracted. You're just there to work, right?
I did start to get distracted though. That's
Ah,
I'd never been distracted before, but in this case, I got distracted. And we just, the format is everybody just stops, and quietly writes together, and then they kind of can discuss their work. And so we discussed our work a little and, struck up a friendship from there. And apparently she thought I was somebody that she already knew and disliked. So this was a funny thing. So, so she thought I looked like somebody that she already knew, but was not a very nice guy. So when we discussed, when we talked about our stories, she realized I was not that guy, which was, obviously to my benefit.
absolutely.
And yeah, the rest, was just a friendship, interests, discussing the writing. And then we kind of had like the one coffee date and which lasted like, 6 hours, and a real date, and kind of a real natural progression from there into, engagement, marriage, and now it's 2 kids.
2 kids, young ones too, right? Little kids.
All cool COVID kids, I guess. Cyrus was
Yeah.
born about a month and a half before COVID happened.
Okay.
And then Victor was just this December.
Wow. Congratulations.
It's
So, are you ever going to write that story? The story of your meet cute and your life?
Oh, I never even thought about it. That's funny you said that. It just seems pretty straightforward. There's nothing that crazy in you,
Ah,
but I still
well,
bring in those elements into all my other work.
yeah,
A lot of times the
right.
screenplay I write, I named the protagonist after her in the beginning just to kind of flesh out a character, or, a
Nice.
female character. I'll kind of give names of my friend just to piece it together, make them a little richer from day one. So I bring our story permeates almost every story I have. Actually, even the Institute, right? It's based off a
Yeah,
young couple that can't conceive. So I wouldn't call it semi-autobiographical. We don't deserve it. Other people
sure.
have these real issues, and they're the ones who we should kind of concern with, and support them on their journeys. But some of the dialogue, some of the situations, they all kind of stem from our relationship.
Absolutely. So I have to ask you, I said before, I love that you're following your passion and your dream. And there's a lot of doubt. There's a lot of opportunity to be judged. You're putting out your own personal creativity. You're asking people to back your work and, act in your story. How has self-worth played a role in your journey and your life?
Self-worth. Well, definitely I will give one piece of advice, which is if you have any, be prepared for your self-worth to be negatively impacted if you put out a movie or put out any work. There's
Yeah.
always going to be people that speak negatively of it and nitpick everything.
No matter how good it is, there's always a hater, a troll,
But
yeah.
exactly. So, just be prepared for that and try to stay focused on the positives. Like, you're following your dream. You made a project, you gave people work, you employed people during COVID, you created some art together with people that you love. There are people that love this, there's going to be people that love it. There's going to be people that don't like it, but focus on the fact that you're doing what you set out to do and that you can accomplish what you want to do if you just take the time and keep pushing forward and just find the right team, find the right partner to be at. For my in my case, it's find a support structure around you that'll allow you to thrive. So that's kind of how I would consider like how self-worth played a part in it.
Yeah,
It's a complicated issue, right? Because
it is.
it is
Many
really,
layers.
you almost have to have an overly inflated sense of self-worth to think that anybody cares about what your story is or a story that you write. Like,
Yeah.
why should anybody care? Yeah, you had an idea, you love this, but so what? There's a war going on in Ukraine. There's people dying. There's people, don't have enough to eat. And you're taking, 1,000 days of your life. It took 3 years for us to bring this to market. So where are your priorities at? And I feel those inside as well. I ask myself these questions, like, hey, is this worth it? Is this art like, really contributing to society at the level that it should and that you really can do? And then is it a valid use of resources? And, I think that's an open question and everybody has to answer that for themselves. I mean, I don't need to like publicize any of my charity or, donations and stuff. But for me, this was what I had wanted to do since I was a teenager. And if not young, actually started doing when I was a teenager, but really wanted to do since I was a child. The first Saturday morning cartoons that I watched, I was like, this is cool, but I want this to happen. Why didn't this happen? This is what I would have done.
Oh,
Right?
wow.
This is where it started for me. I'm like, you know what? When I'm going to get older, I'm going to make my own.
I'm going to fix it, make it better.
I'm going to make it better. I'm going to make it more to, my tastes. And that's really all I'm doing is I'm trying to say, hey, there may be people out there that are not being kind of served or may not have their tastes titillated, if you will. So this is something that I think would be cool. This is something I like. I think I want you to enjoy it. This is supposed to bring you actually enjoyment and joy and positive. And even though I tackle some dark subjects and have some, twists and turns in there, the final takeaway, I want you to have some positive, some endorphins and add something kind of helpful to your life, which is, a positive experience. So yeah, I'm not changing the world, but I do want to maybe give a few of us a few hours of play.
Sure. Well, there's a place for it for sure. And we need to support it. We need to support the arts because they aren't an afterthought. They aren't just something to do to pass the time. And I'm thinking about, you're talking about dark subjects. I'm thinking about the first podcast that really put podcasts on the map was true crime. It was called Serial.
Mm.
And it was about this guy that's in prison for killing his girlfriend and like, did he do it? Did he not? And now that
Yeah,
Serial has
released. Yeah,
did it get him released?
I know.
Oh, I didn't know the end.
I don't know if I think there was, if it's the same podcast I'm thinking of, there was a lot of like, attention that came to her. Maybe there's
Yeah,
also
a lot of I don't know if he ever got released, but definitely a lot of attention. But that's really what made, I believe, what made podcasts mainstream, because this was before Joe Rogan and all of that.
yeah.
And so true crime, those darker subjects, they're very popular. They're very sought after. I think it allows us to look at the shadow side of life. And for me, the reason I don't like it is I don't like to be scared. I'm scared enough in my own life, and I don't like to be upset. I'm upset enough in my own life. Like I don't need to be entertained with the stuff that I deal with, and because I'm
Yeah.
all about being positive and really managing my mindset. So, and it's just a personal choice, but it's very popular. And you're right. Like those darker subjects, that's what people want. It's give the people what they want. And you're doing that. Just on.
Yeah, I think I try to give a little bit of positivity in there because, there's just to me, there's no such thing as like pure white, pure black,
Yeah, of course.
there's always going to be a little mix in there. So we'll see.
Absolutely.
We'll see. I totally respect your desire to kind of control your information space and to keep your life, oriented the way you want it to go. I just have been one of these people my whole life where I couldn't do that. Like to me, I need to know what's going on in those areas because that's what fulfills my life. That's what gives me the the confidence to feel that I have a true understanding of the meaning of my life, right? I need to know what's happening in the bunker in in Kiev, where, my friend is right now hiding from these Russian forces,
Wow.
as well as, be able to enjoy like the sublime love of my wife. I have to have both sides of it. And unfortunately,
You live in the grays. No
I
black
can't.
and white. Yeah, you live in the grays. Yeah, it's good. It's a very good skill, and it's makes you a better storyteller, I'm sure, as well.
So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can see your movie on all the streaming services, and I'm wishing you huge success with it. So much
Thank you,
success that it
Trista.
ends up
Thank
in
you
the
so
4
much.
movie theaters that are still open after COVID. Oh my
Of
goodness. It's quite a world that we're in. It's quite a world. I always like to turn the tables before we end and see if you have a question you'd like to ask me. So do you have a question for me today?
Sure. Yeah, Trista. I know you had said that, you deal with, empowerment and positivity, kind of like surround yourself with this world. So I don't need you to get into like, what bad thing happened that, made you kind of focus on that or any of the other bad stuff because we all have that, right? Everybody deals with these bad issues and, and I really I'm very appreciative that you would share and build a platform for others to share their stories and try to uplift them by focusing on the positive. So I want to start by just thanking you. But I wanted to know if there was a particular incident or anything that you probably already dealt with this in your other podcasts, but I was just curious if there's anything specific you wanted to talk about on what inspired you to do this and where that came from.
Well, so my brand for my coaching and my business is called I Woke Up Awesome. And where that came from is I've done a lot of work on myself over my life. I'm very transformational. I like taking courses and reading books and watching videos that expand me to be able to transform myself to be the best possible version I can be, the highest self version I can be walking around in
Yeah.
this humanness that we all have. And in that journey, I realized that I've learned a lot that I wanted to be able to give back and share. And I could actually, pay that forward. And then all of a sudden, that, voice in your head that's living there speaking to you as basically an ongoing, never ending monologue,
Hmm.
it said, oh, well, you better get a haircut first. Oh, you should lose a few pounds. Well, you're not wearing makeup. Don't do it today. Oh, you should buy a new wardrobe. Like there were all these reasons to wait. And then one morning I woke up and I said, I had this epiphany that came from somewhere that you are perfect just as you are. There's nothing to change about you. If you go onto a video camera and start recording yourself with your hair terrible, your makeup under your eyes, wearing your pajamas, this is before COVID, right? When everybody's doing that now, like it's,
Became a
fashion
little,
sense. Right. I was a trendsetter, baby. Um, if you go on camera just as you are, right out of bed, and share powerful words of wisdom that help people, that's still amazing. And you don't need to look perfect and dress perfectly and all of those things in order to offer something of value, because just as you are right now, you are perfect. I gave myself this little pep talk from this epiphany. And then I realized, well, that's true of all of us. Like we're all perfect. Hamza, you are perfect just as you are. You have nothing to change about you.
thank you.
And I thought, what if that was the message that there is to share? Because my self-worth has definitely grown over the years. That's why I always ask the question, how has self-worth played a role in your life? Because it's definitely played a role in mine. And I love hearing other perspectives about it. But I used to think I'm too fat, too ugly, too dumb, not funny enough. Like, pick a reason why I'm terrible that I shouldn't be sharing my gifts like you are sharing yours. I love acting. I would never be an actor. I wouldn't want to put up with the rejection. I love writing, but I could never, like all of those self-doubt
Yeah.
things. And so that's kind of where it all stemmed from, because I really believe that you can't be more successful than your self-worth says. You can't be loved more than you love yourself. We put the limits on ourselves. So it's really about taking the limits away layer by layer. It's not a flipped switch kind of situation, right? There's always another layer to do. So that's really where it comes from. And of course, as you said, plenty of personal trauma and drama that I've worked through in my life, like we all have. I'm no special person when it comes to that. We all deal with our own journey. But yeah, so that's, I would say, where it all kind of stems from. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, we all deal with the trauma, but not as many of us, not enough of us do something about it that can help others. I went to during COVID, I got my EMT certification. I went to some training last night where for the first time, we did this kind of suicide assistance,
Mm,
QPR training. And I had just wished to God that somebody had shown me this training like a decade ago, because,
wow.
we don't need to get into it, but, there's people that I'd met, like friends of mine, and, I didn't have the tools to really help them. I didn't really have the tools to help. So it's amazing that 1 hour and a half session, you could be able to give you the tools that you could use to save a life. I mean, I hate to, you know, over dramatize it, but it's true. So I think you building a platform where you bring these people in and, get them to potentially share some information that could be very helpful to people. It's very vital. And not many people take that next step to say, hey, I'm not going to just let this transformation, the self transformation journey help me. I'm going to do something that could potentially allow others to help others.
Yeah. So QPR, it's a suicide prevention tool. I've never
Yeah.
heard of this before. Give me a brief synopsis.
Basically, it is, I don't want to really, I'm no expert. I could,
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. It
basically
can
like,
be like a top level.
yeah. So there's CPR, which is what, we're trained with to, provide, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, help like a person that's having, cardiac issue or respiratory issue. So QPR is kind of based around the same, which is three tenets called question, persuade, and refer. And you basically just give people the basic things to say and frankly not to say, and how if you suspect somebody is contemplating suicide, you can question them about it and persuade them. And all you really the core of it is based on hope. So a lot of people, they feel that they have no other choice. Suicide is not an option that people take because they have any other way. They're just like us, that people that their life has pushed them into a corner, and the only way they think they can escape these problems is through suicide. So all you do is you try to persuade them, give them a little bit of hope. This topic, this is what really dark fast is, give them a little bit of hope that there is another option. And that can sometimes be enough. And then, it's just the other is just to refer them to the professional. There's a whole, group of advocacy
Sure.
organizations. And unfortunately, in the Sullivan County area, there's not enough of them. We have one of the highest suicide rates in the state. And it's very unfortunate. And this was based primarily around first responders. That's why, we took the training, but I think it's very helpful to everybody in this world to have known about this and how to deal with this. If you can just build yourself up, take some time to hear them out and persuade them that there's hope, that there's options other than suicide, and then refer them to an organization that deals with this, for like a professional organization. That could be what it takes to save somebody.
Wow, and I appreciate you mentioning it. I've not heard of this process. I get that it's for first responders, but like you said, it sounds like it's something just like you could learn CPR, and,
Yeah.
and be a citizen. I think people really want to, you say hope is a piece of it. I absolutely agree. And I think, and this is my opinion, but people just really want to be heard. They want to feel connection with others. And so I think that's where the hope comes from the process you're talking about, not really knowing what it is. But yeah, that's a great resource to share. People are always sharing the suicide prevention hotline stuff on Facebook and all of that.
Yep.
It's a thing that it's hard to know sometimes. People like the famous people like Anthony Bourdain, Robin Williams. Oh, well, nobody realized how they were feeling and that it was that bad for them. And
There are
we've
some.
gotten so, yeah, so to know those signs, we've gotten so isolated. I think mental health issues are definitely off the charts because of COVID and isolation. And, you know, I like being home. I enjoy being home. I'm going to just be really honest and say this has been not bad, but good for my mental health. But I have friends, they need to be around human people, in order to really feel connected to the world. And it's been really tough for them. And you're right, it got a little dark, but that's okay. That's life. And I do appreciate you sharing that resource.
Of course.
So I'm so happy to have had you here today, Hamza. It has been a really fun and
Thank you so much,
educational
Trista. I appreciate it.
conversation.
Thanks for having me. This has been really wonderful.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Me too. So everybody go see the film, The Institute, streaming wherever you watch stuff. Give it reviews, rave reviews, share it on social media. Let's help this independent film get the huge love and support that it deserves.
Thank you so much, Trista.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Have a great day.
You too, Trista. Take care.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Trista's Plate Story podcast, share it, or leave a review. If you would like to nominate a license plate to be featured in a future episode, or you have an interesting Plate Story news item to share with me, leave us a comment or visit platestory.com. That's PL8story.com and give me all the details. This is Trista Polo, wishing you well on the road to your next adventure.